Hi, everyone. My name is Barbra Dillon. I am the editor-in-chief of Fanbase Press, and I'm honored to be moderating the Giving Voice to Independent Creators panel for Comic-Con at Home with a very talented group of creators. In this discussion today, we will be addressing the challenges of independent comic book creation, from putting together your creative team to deciding whether to self-publish or even submit to a publisher. In addition, we will also discuss the importance of inclusion in the sequential art medium, both for creators and fans, and why it's important to ensure that everyone has a seat at the table to share their stories and perspectives. But without further ado, let's meet each of our wonderful panelists. First, we have Lisa K. Weber. Lisa is the artist and co-creator of the award-winning comic book series Hex 11 and CCO of Hex Comics. Hi, Lisa.
Hi.
We also have Kelly Sue Milano. Kelly Sue is the writer and co-creator of Hex 11 and Hex Comics Oracle. Hi, Kelly Sue.
Hi.
We also have Lynly Forrest. Lynly is the editor and producer of Hex 11 and the CEO of Hex Comics. Hi, Lynly.
Hello.
We have Alston Novak. Alston is a freelance illustrator as well as the creator behind Glitch Comics. Hi, Alston.
Hi, co-creator, I should specify.
Co-creator, excellent.
Yes. Sarah is my writer, she's great.
Fair enough. We acknowledge and appreciate Sarah. We also have Travis Rivas. Travis is the editor of Super Able Comics and co-founder of the Accidental Aliens comic book studio. Hi, Travis.
Hey, how's it going?
Not too bad. Last but certainly not least, we have David F. Walker. David is a writer, publisher, and pseudo-scoundrel with credits including the Eisner-nominated Bitterroot from Image Comics. Hi, David.
Hello, how are you? That's
I love it. It's fantastic. Well, everyone, why don't we dive right in? First, I'd love for our viewers to learn about you as both individuals and how you became creators. So what inspired you to become a comic book creator, and who or what were some of your influences? David, why don't we start with you?
Well, you know, I always wanted to do comics. I mean, literally since I was a little kid, I was a fan of superheroes, and then when people said, what do you want to be when you grow up? I want to make comics. And then I got older and my dreams were crushed by, society, and I got a real job. And then when my midlife crisis started, I realized I hadn't pursued my childhood dream. So I decided to go after comics, and that's where I am now. And if I could go back in time, I'd slap the hell out of myself and say, don't do that. Oh, it's not that bad.
Come on. Living the dream is not as easy as they make it sound.
Not at all. Not at all. But it's pretty cool. And now I'm doing all of the things I wanted to do when I was a kid. So except the paying bills part, which is not something I ever dreamed of doing.
Understandable. Kelly Sue, what about you?
Geez, what got me started in comics? It was a love of Batman that happened for me summer of '89. It just kind of exploded my brain. And that was when I was really introduced to the power of comics, and just how awesome this medium really is, and everything that's possible within it. And then from there, I went into, graphic novels and The Watchmen, and it became this sort of like, I can do anything storytelling wise with this. This can be about anything, and that was so inspiring and incredible to me. And I did so many other things prior to that. I was an actress. That was fun. It taught me a lot about not taking things personally.
You want to say nothing is as good as for your self-esteem as a little bit of acting.
Literally, like getting rejected 250 times over the course of 6 months is going to do a lot for you ego-wise. But it led me to learning how to write for television, which ended up being my dream kind of all along. And that parlayed into comics, which is it's an absolute gift every day. And while it may not help me with that one adult part of paying the bills, it's worth it.
Due time, though, in due time.
Exactly. Lizzie, what about you?
I came into comics because I am a supporter of things that are awesome. And I knew Lisa K. Weber, and I knew she could do amazing things. And I love to tell great stories. I love to read. I love to watch and sing and hear great stories. And I love to facilitate artists who can do amazing things. And so I ended up here because I knew, this was something Lisa wanted to do, and I knew she was totally capable of achieving it. And I liked the idea of having something it's tangible and it's persistent, which is nice. Like, it's printed, it's a thing that's going to be like in the, in a library forever and all times. And there was something about that I was like, man, this is just neat. We're making it for posterity, as a singer and a performer. It's all about being there in the moment right then, which is very much my jam because I have a brain like a goldfish. And I can't remember from time to time. Maybe it's the weed. Maybe it's having a 4-year-old at 40. I don't know. I know a lot of factors feeding into this. But I think it's definitely, I love to tell stories, and this is what was presented to me. And I thought, yeah, this is going to be awesome. Let's do it. And here we are.
Travis, what about you?
Clearly you guys can see that I've always been kind of a nerd. Stuck here in my X-Wing. I don't remember my first memory of Star Wars because it's always just been in there. But I do remember watching X-Men the animated series for the first time. And I was born with a disability called TAR syndrome, where I'm missing a bone in both of my forearms. And so I never saw anyone who looked like me growing up. And then with the X-Men cartoon, what really resonated with me is they didn't really fit in anywhere either. So for a long time, the X-Men cartoons and the comics became my tribe. They were my friends. They were my family. And so as I got older, I wanted to create stories for people specifically with limb differences to relate to, and to have those superheroes that I didn't necessarily have. I mean, we had Nightcrawler has a limb difference, and X-Men are all different, but I was looking for something a little bit more specific to my situation. And then I created that, and that led me to an organization called the Lucky Fin Project, which is a nonprofit that supports families and individuals with limb differences. And then from there, I managed to meet other writers and creators with disabilities, and I've been making books with them ever since.
That's fantastic. Alston, what about you?
So I got into drawing. It's like always been a part of my life because I had the kind of grandparents who did the whole, you have 30 minutes of TV and computer time a day. There are no kids in the neighborhood, so you're going to read books or draw. And I was like, all right, I can do those things. So it's like kind of always there, but I got into comics specifically because I grew up on, Saturday morning cartoons, and eventually kind of spiraled into manga. Started doing like actual comic books when my friends and I in college, it was like the height of Marvel had just happened. The 2012 Avengers came out, and we were all like, okay, we have to make our own superheroes, and we all created all these different designs and villains, and I was like, okay, I got to draw all of this. And it spiraled into this whole sweeping interactive thing for a little while. And I always really liked that energy that we always had and the excitement around it. Yeah. And that's kind of what's sort of kept me in it. I always have liked storytelling, and to this day, I still kind of oscillate between being a novelist and being a comic writer. And it's the most frustrating thing because you'll be in the middle of a story that you've been writing as a novel, and you're like, this scene would be great drawn. I don't know how to write it, but I can draw it in a minute, or vice versa. I'm working on a comic, and I'm like, I don't want to draw this. I know how to write it. That struggle.
Yeah.
But I've never experienced that ever in my life.
I'm so jealous because every story, I spend so much time trying to figure out which medium is best for this story, and then nothing ever happens. But
it is a quest.
Yes. Yeah. But no, it's always been that excitement, that energy that I keep chasing.
Yeah. And Lisa, what about you?
I came into really loving comics a little bit relatively late in life, I guess. When I was 18 and went to college, a roommate handed me Sandman, And I was obsessed ever since, because I didn't know comics could really look like that or be like that. I just always thought they were only for superheroes or for like comic strips. And ever since I read that, I kind of stayed in that realm. And I always actually thought, ever since I was a little kid, I thought I would become an animator. But it turns out I don't have the patience for that. So comics actually became kind of like the perfect place to land, because I do have the patience for that. And that kind of like storytelling where it's like you can still make, like Kelly Sue was saying earlier, you can still make anything happen in this realm. But it's a lot easier than, say, making an animated movie. So yeah.
Well, I think we can all attest to the fact that the comic book creation process likewise can be a long and arduous process. So we're going to do our best today to walk people through. This could be hours long conversation, but we'll condense it for everyone. To start at the beginning, days, exactly. Thank you, Travis. We want to start at the beginning with putting together your creative team. So Lynly and Travis, I actually want to start with both of you in this. Is there any advice that you would offer in terms of just simply putting together the creative team and where to find available creators, whether that be writer, artist, letterer, colorist, etc.? Travis, why don't we start with you?
Yeah, sure. So when I first started out, I think I just started finding people on DeviantArt to draw comic pages for me, and then kind of moved over to Instagram and Facebook. And really, I would just kind of see someone's art who I liked and their style, and I would just shoot them a message, say, hey, these are really good. What's your rate? Do you want to work on a project? And some people's rate would be outside of my budget, and I would say, that's fair, but I can't work with you. Or, they would come back with a reasonable number, and we would. And it's just kind of really as simple as that. For me as a writer, I look for art styles that I think are interesting and visually appealing, and then I just message them.
Lynly, what about you?
Well, I think one way is to become a really good friend with an artist, and then you don't have to find an artist because you already have one. So that works. But after you find the artist, we went looking for, we learned we needed a writer, and then we learned, hey, it would be helpful to have, somebody to help do color, or, this is a lot of work, which we all understood going into it. But once you actually get into it, then you're like, oh man, how are we going to solve these problems? We turned to, always references. My husband, Casey, worked with Kelly Sue. That's how we found Kelly Sue. He was like, oh my God, she's exactly who you need. She quit her job to go take this writing class. And we were like, oh, well, we'll try that out. And it fit, which is another thing, is you can go find people, but it might not fit. You need to make sure that you're with people, or you're finding people, and that you're connecting with people that are really interested in doing the kind of work that they're going to have to do, putting the time in, being a good collaborator. I mean, it's a lot to ask, but the other approach we took was putting up job postings and intern postings on art school boards, job boards. And that's how we found Samantha, who was our very first intern, who is now our, one of our flattists. I never get it right. Flatter. I know. I flattist. I want to be flattist because it sounds like flautist. I don't know. You know what I'm talking about. But we found Sam, and she ended up, it was great because students, they're very talented. They've done all this work. They're very eager. They will work for free or cheap, which is nice.
We always make sure to start paying them after their internship period. I will say
make that very clear.
I want to make that very clear that we
always
pay them.
Yes, our goal has always been to bring people into the fold. I mean, we want to build a crew. We want to establish. Because the community of it too is a huge part for me personally. Like, there's that's what storytelling is about. We don't sit around and tell stories to ourselves. You know, we use this as a way to connect with others. And so it's like, to me, that's why I was like, students are kind of cool because they're going to be fresh and they're going to be ambitious and they're going to be excited. So let's start there. And then we can help them understand what it means to actually get to work, because how many people go to art school and they graduate and don't actually become artists? How many people don't? I mean, I have a degree in theater. I can count on one hand how many hours I spent on the stage. I mean, post my college life. I mean, it's not enough to justify my student loans, to be honest with you. But you know, so it's like so we went looking to people where they could be mutually beneficial, where the students would benefit because we could kind of help them learn what it means to kind of be an adult and an artist. When you've got someone who's got literally 20 years as an independent artist like Lisa, she's got a wealth of information. And it's honest and it's true. And it's like we had something to share there, and we did. And it's been really beneficial. But I think art schools are a great place to start. And they come to you. You can say, submit your portfolio to me. And it gives you a chance to look through. We had probably, that first time we posted, we got probably 10 portfolios. And we chose Sam. We didn't know that she was a girl even. We thought she was a boy. But come to find out, she was this really talented, incredible, awesome woman child and was ready to get to work, and she did, and it was great. So I think you go with what you know. I think finding people online and stuff is good too, but I'm always very wary because I'm like, I don't know where you're from. I don't know what you're doing. I don't mean like I don't know where you're from. I mean like I don't know what you're about, and I don't know where you live, and I can't see your face, and I don't know. That's just me. I want to connect with people, and I want to know that they're on the team and that we're all in this together and that we're all going to feel like, okay, let's make something awesome,
Absolutely.
That's a better answer than mine. Just pretend I said that.
You're welcome to answer anytime, Travis. You can take my message.
Way more polite than anything I would have said.
I mean, listen, honestly, collaboration is very challenging. It's very challenging, but it's so essential. So that's why also there's that, saying from the song, the lyric, hold on loosely, but don't let go. You got to come into these things like, ooh, I want this to work, but how, negotiating these kinds of things can be very challenging. And obviously, like, we live in, since we're talking about independent comics, we live in an independent world. We can decide like, oh, we want this to be done by February, but oh, all right, that's not, it's going to be done in October. So we have a lot of freedom that gives us a lot more flexibility so that our relationships don't have to be quite so tight. But when you're working in a situation where, you really are on someone else's timeline, or you've got money, real money involved in that kind of thing, oh man, stuff can go sideways really fast. So getting to know the people you're working with and setting really clear boundaries and expectations is wildly important. Like, because that way, at least if you get off the gate and we're all clear about what's going on here and what we're expecting and what we expect to deliver at X date, then we have a framework for success. And if somebody can't fit, then we can say, listen, you knew what it was. This is not working out. We appreciate what you've done, but we've got to find somebody else. Trying to be cordial and trying to be understanding only helps when you actually have a proper structure that people can function in.
Sure. Well, I want to include, obviously, Alston, Lisa, David, and Kelly Sue in this, but I'd like to expand this a little bit more in terms of looking for the creative team. One of the things that we want to keep in mind, especially in thinking that you're going to be bringing a story to life with these individuals, is keeping in mind inclusion. So how do you also approach representation, both with your work and the creative team? David, we'll start with you this time.
A lot of it is, there's a combination of factors. One is I'll look at stuff and go, okay, what did I feel like was missing when I was younger? Because a lot of things haven't necessarily changed in that 1,000 years. But then I just sort of will look around at in the world around me, and as people are speaking up, various voices. The other day I saw something, Black trans lives matter, and I thought to myself, yeah, I've never written a Black trans character. I guess it's about time I do that. It's like really trying to adapt or adopt a philosophy of like looking at the world and seeing who's out there and going, okay, well, again, if it's, again, using a Black trans character as an example, it's like, yeah, if I haven't seen, when was the last time I saw a character like that? Do I know Black trans folks? Yes, I do. So how can I make this work? And it isn't always easy, you know, and you want it to be natural and organic to your story. You don't want to shoehorn somebody in. And it helps if you know people, so you can talk to them and get feedback, and it doesn't feel disingenuous. But for me, boredom is a huge thing, because there's types of characters that I become very bored writing and very bored reading about. And like at the top of that list, it's like, okay, I don't need those characters in my story if I can help it.
Yes.
Yeah. Alston, what about you? What are your thoughts?
I mean, same. I'm still very much in the zone of like really exploring lots of queer characters, especially in personal works. Glitch is, you know, Sarah writes it, so that's an area where I really try to play a lot with the character designs. But since Sarah writes them, they're sort of there's a certain degree of like they're already a little bit designed. So in my personal stuff, I'm like over here being like, okay, how do I just make every different flavor of queer person possible? And when will I run out? Not for about 20 years.
There's so many variables.
So many variables. So it's fun to kind of play with that. It's one of those things where, you know, I'm just always trying to like read and educate myself, meet new people, and same thing, just expand, see where I'm like, you know, we've seen so many of the same types of characters over and over that subconsciously you will sit there and be like, oh, this kind of character looks like this. Then I go, but do they have to? Can I change that? Can I do like literally anything else?
Yeah. But, Travis, yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to kind of add to what both of you guys said, is that not only that, but you want to kind of make sure that your own world is expanding. You know, we have about 10 or 12 different members in my studio. And I remember one day we were all sitting around a table and we had one token straight white dude, you know, and so like
The token.
yeah,
Token.
right. And so like that for me, like that's not only my personal world, but that's like my creative world as well. Like these are the people that I know. And so these are the people that I kind of want to include in my different stories that I write as well.
Well, I think some of that, just to jump in, like that's kind of part of this conversation that we're having, and kind of the overarching thing, which is, look, you live an interesting life. Look to the people around you. Those are characters. Share them with the world. You know, it's been such a disservice to us that for so long we've had to think that to tell a story, then this is who has to be in it. You have to have the hero, you have to have the heroine, you have the villain, and they all fit into these nice little stereotypes. You know, and it's like
skin tone, these body types.
Yeah, and it's weird how long it's persisted, like so long.
Well, you know, it's interesting that you say that, because as someone who's a little bit older than a lot of you or all of you, I find myself getting caught in that trap sometimes of falling into these sort of specific archetypes of what a character should look like or should be like. Oh. And usually before the first draft of anything I'm done working on, I look at it and go, okay, you know, well, oh, is this a sausage fest? Yeah. Why is it all guys, you know? And then trying to be really aware of it. I'm getting much better at it, but it's still, you know, I think about like the movies and the TV shows that I grew up on. And then if you get someone my generation as an executive or an editor or someone who's making decisions, and they're raised the same way, or weaned on the same sort of pop culture, then it kind of becomes normal. And it isn't until someone points out to you and says like, oh, you know, you have this character over here and they're queer, but it's a horrific stereotype, and, you know, why'd you do this? You know, it's this character's here for comedic relief. That's fine as long as that character is three-dimensional and not just, you know, and so that's, I think a lot of it for me is like, I admit it. I admit that I have these flaws, and I try to talk to people and ask them to, you know, help me get through it. And sometimes again, like as someone who's a little bit older, it can be frustrating because like younger people will just like, they go on the attack, you know, and I'm just like, okay, you whippersnapper, just slow down. I get into that problem with my students a lot, where they get really, and I tell them, the thing I always get hung up on is I'm still working on like gender pronouns. I call everybody guys all the time. So like in my class, I'll be, hey, how you guys doing? And like inevitably there's somebody in the class that like bristles. And I'm just like, look, you know, I'm older than your parents, and that's the problem. And I'm working on this. But language is changing, and I'm trying to adapt to it. And it's like, so are you going to get mad, or are you going to just look at me and go, oh, that poor old man? I would rather you do that. You know, take me by the hand and show me, you know, show me the way, the errors.
Yeah, I agree. It's like you know, you got to give people the chance to learn and improve. And I'm with you, David. Like I find myself I'm having to challenge myself all the time in character design to make sure that I'm diversifying enough. And it's something I think about like with every new character. And sometimes I'm like, oh man, I look at it after the fact and I'm like, everybody has the same body type, you know? And I'm like, I did it again, you know? So it's like, I want to just add to the chorus of like flaws, but you know, we're working on it. We're thinking about these things, and that's, you know, it's a big part of it.
And it's complicated. It's complicated because it's not just like I'm over here harboring a bunch of stereotypes.
Right.
It's like when you grow up watching the stuff we've watched for 40 some odd years, and you love these things, you love those characters, you fall in love with it. It is a language. And so when you then go to yourself as a small person or a middle-sized person and go, I want to make stories, well, where do you go to? You reference the things you just saw. And so, and then if you make a career of that, then it just gets reinforced. And it's like, this is the way I tell stories. These are the way I choose those characters, which is why it's so important that the people who are coming up inside of this world with all of these possibilities of a greater understanding and wider acceptance in these things, that instead of those people yelling at the older generation to be like, you're not doing enough, it's their job to show everyone, to make those new stories so that the kids like Valen growing up sees all of those people now. And so when he decides that he wants to make stuff, that he has all of that in his mind instead of what's in my mind, which is like the Blues Brothers and Ghostbusters, you know? Like, granted, Ghostbusters did have that.
Which are great.
Yeah, they're great. At least they did have a lovely African-American man. And that was awesome.
Yeah.
But it's like, that doesn't make me racist. It's just, that's what I grew up with. That's just what I know. It's not a justification for us to not try better and do better. But it's like, that's the whole point of kind of this panel discussion is do it. Don't be beholden to what came before you. If you feel inspired and you're seeing a world, tell your world. Tell the story that's set in your world. And I think Alston, you and Sarah? Yeah, are doing a great job at that. You know, you're prescient, it's honest, it's current, and it's diverse because y'all are diverse and you're from a generation that's like, the world is much more open to all of these possibilities now.
As I say, more than anything, like that's the great thing about the internet is it's just so easy to find other experiences and find other people that like, it's still something that, you know, even I need to work on every day. And I'm always like, I need to get even more, because, you know, I grew up in suburban Iowa. I know a bunch of white people and I know corn, and that is all I know.
Corn. What kind of hand in hand?
Well, very hand in hand. But no, so like even being young, like I still have to go out of my way and just, you know, try to do that won't work, but it's all there. It's so accessible.
Yeah.
Well, Lynly and Alston, Kelly Sue, I'm actually going to go to you next for this first thing, but Lynly and Alston, I feel like you gave us a great jumping off point for our next transition to the differences so that people can understand mainstream comics versus self-publishing and what that looks like. And I feel like, and please correct me if I'm wrong, or please speak up, and Kelly Sue, again, we'll start with you, but it seems as though self-published or independent works are often those that are really pushing the boundaries in terms of diversifying and being more inclusive, not only with their creative teams, but with the stories that they're telling, the characters that they're displaying. So do you see similar things with mainstream comics right now, or what are the differences that you're seeing? Kelly Sue, we'll start with you.
I think that the first time that it really kind of exploded for me in terms of, again, I feel like I have this relationship with comics where I'm constantly being shown like, oh my gosh, this is possible, and this is possible, and this is possible. And what really broke my brain in the best way was when I started Saga. And I thought, like, people they don't even have to be humans to be telling a human story. Mm-hmm. Like, and also what was so inspiring for me about that book was like just being a yes on every page. It was just like, oh, we're talking to these people now. And now this person who's just an eyeball with legs, it's like, he's really got something important to say. You know, there was none of this, like, it was just instant acceptance. And I thought, like, that is far out. That is right on. And that's the kind of storytelling that I want to be a part of.
Yes.
And a huge part of what I think makes that possible is what everybody was saying prior, which is like looking outside of yourself and then also looking within yourself. You know, what are my biases? How can I really create this inclusive world if I'm not checking myself as well, you know? And then also the beauty of self-publishing is that you can build your team. You know, we have this writer's room this summer for the very first time at Hex Comics that's filled with awesome young artists from all different backgrounds. And the input that they have on this book is going to make it exponentially more dynamic than it would have ever been if it was just me being like, I read a story about that kind of person one time. You know what I mean? Like, they're actually putting their voices in, and we've been so lucky to find these incredible artists and to have them come on and write some of our characters that they identify with. And I think that that's going to create that experience that I had reading Saga, where I was like, I'm learning something about myself in this process. And I'm learning it from this woman who's like no arms and half a spider. You know, that's amazing. So I don't actually know if that answered that question or not.
It was invaluable information, though. Invaluable, yes.
So yes, I think it is happening in mainstream comics.
There we go.
Travis, I know that we've chatted about this before, not only in terms of comics, but other art forms and mediums as well. What is your perspective in terms of seeing inclusivity, especially in the comics medium?
Well, I mean, I'll say that, you know, independent comics can definitely take risks that, you know, the big two or, you know, even the big five might not be willing to take at all. You know, for me, you know, characters like Unstoppable Cherub, which is one of my book that I created, and with Super Abled Comics, like, these just exist not to make me money or to, you know, hit a bottom line. It exists because myself and other creators want it to exist. So really the only person that I'm kind of beholden to is myself and anybody who I would think might potentially enjoy it. So yeah, I mean, I definitely think that the indie scene is taking more risks than others. Like, I don't have to worry about whether or not this is going to be a franchise opportunity or not. You know, I don't have to worry about if I'm offending people. You know, some of the stuff I might write, if I'm offending you, well, good. I want you to feel a certain way about that. And, you know, if you have issues with it, cool, let's talk about it. But, you know, I'm not, you know, if you want to boycott my book or anything like that, that's fine. That's up to you. Yeah.
Lisa, what about you?
Yeah, I mean, I think I see like the growth of all comics through indie comics. Like, I mean, yeah. I don't have like I'm sorry, I'm like probably not the best person to answer this question because I'm like,
Yep.
other than
Dated
that,
books, those ones are always super awesome, and they're right at the intersection of indie and the big five, right?
which one? What did you say?
David Walker.
Oh, yeah, there we go.
Books. Yeah, you got some insights on that, David?
Well, I mean, yeah, anything that's the most exciting stuff is happening in indie comics, because they're not beholden to anybody, right? You know,
Right.
Marvel and DC especially are owned by these mega corporations that are in the business of they're not even trying to sell comic books. They're trying to sell action figures and underwear and you know, plastic, you know, party favors and just stuff like that. That's what they're trying
Selling
to
that IP.
Yeah, it's all about the IP. And you know, and people drink the Kool-Aid, and I've drank the Kool-Aid, and I've also stirred it up a little bit too, because I've worked on that level. But I think that the real changes happen, you know, like Kelly C was talking about with Saga. I mean, that was a book that I hadn't read for a long time. People kept saying, "Oh, you should read it. You should read it." And I was like, "Yeah, okay, whatever. I'll read it one of these days." And then I read it, and I was like, "What did I wait so long for?" You know? And it was like, well, now I have to go back and rethink everything that I'm doing. And I, as frustrating as that can be, I also embrace that possibility, right? And I think that a lot of it is just about being open to meeting other people and talking to them. I mean, you know, everybody on this panel, you know, I met Team Hex at a convention, and Travis, I think I met you through them. If not, I remember we met at WonderCon. I can't remember exactly how, but it was like, okay, you know, it's you get to meet people and you talk about things and you share experiences and you read their comics and you go, oh, this is kind of cool. I'm going to steal this idea and I'm going to try to take it over to Marvel. And then Marvel doesn't want to do it. So then you go, well, I'll just put it in my own little indie book and I won't say that I stole it from Travis, you know. But also the thing that you do is and this is the hard part, and I have never been successful at this yet, but like a job might come my way or a job offer might come my way that I either can't do or I'm not interested in for one reason or another. And then you try to, you know, recommend somebody else that you know, and inevitably it's always the same response. So I've said, you know, oh, you know, I know this Kelly Sue Milano, she'd be great at this gig. And the editors always say, well, I've never heard of Kelly Sue. And I will say something like, yeah, you know, this is the Transformers. It doesn't really matter who's writing. They're going to buy it. And that's sort of and therein lies a huge hurdle when we're talking about inclusivity and that sort of, that line of thinking in comics, is that it has to be someone that you've either heard of or that you know. And if it doesn't fall within your spectrum, your world, you know, it's like if I say, oh yeah, I'm looking for a really good artist, and you know what, I want to hire somebody out of Nigeria because they've got just this like amazing art scene, you know, this amazing comic scene, and every editor I've said that to is like, yeah, no, I've never seen any art out of Nigeria, and I'm like, well, I could show you some, you know, and that becomes the, you know, I guess that's the good fight that we all have to do. And a lot of it's about trying to look out for each other in one capacity or another. And sometimes it's as simple as hitting the share button on a Kickstarter campaign, or liking something, or just saying to your, you know, a friend says, oh, you know, my kid's looking for a comic. She's 11 years old. What's something that she might like? And you go,
oh, I know one. It's Hex 11.
Exactly. So, but I think a lot of it, to me, a lot of it's about community. Trying to, I try to think of it as this, as much as a community as it is an industry, because the industries come and go and things fall apart, but communities can last a bit more. And I think right now we're seeing, like, you know, what the hell's going on in the comic industry? And it's like, well,
yeah,
it's not, it might not be that good, but the community, the people that I know are still hustling.
We're going to be fine.
Yeah.
And that, I think, is the larger point too, is that these monolithic structures, they will fall. Like, they're going to collapse. It's the nature of things. It may not be now or anytime soon, but it's like you can't.
Oh, it's next week. It's happening next week.
Yeah.
Yeah. One more time with Donald Trump in charge. Oh man, we might all be living in ashes. Who knows? But I've always taken the tack of like, I'm not going to wait for y'all. I don't care. And I'm never going to get into it, and you're never going to hear me, and it's never going to work. So I'm just going to go do what I want to do. And then maybe we can just bring people over here, you know, and then we'll just do this thing. And again, I've said it before, but it's like, there's never, ever been a time like this, like in hundreds and hundreds of years that the artist has been in more control and in more power of their scenario than right now. That we have been able to start this Hex Comics with just the three of us and literally like $400. I mean, that was like all the money we had. We had nothing. And it's like that we were able to do this and put out 15 issues. I mean, it speaks a lot, obviously, to the people involved, that Lisa's willing to work that hard and Kelly Sue's willing to commit to that. And that I obviously got no day job, and I'm like, hey, I'm in. I know those things can be rare, but in times like now, when things are falling apart, when all you've got is time and the people you know, this is what gets done. This is when new things start. This is the birth of a new paradigm. It's in this. It doesn't happen in those monolithic buildings. Nothing changes there. It only goes there to die eventually. So we are the sprouts of new thoughts and ideas. And it's only through us going, you know what? I'm going to do what I want. And with respect to others and the earth and all of these things, that's a given. I'm talking about the individual perspective, though. That it's like, you've got to be able to say, I'm going to find some people and I'm just going to do this thing. And maybe it's not going to be perfect right off the gate, but I'll just keep working at this, because what else are you doing? Waiting to die?
Important to note here, too, especially for our independent creators, this is not going to be news to you, but I feel like I need to say it every single time. There's always going to be a million reasons to not do it. Oh. That list will never get shorter, and there's never going to be a time where it's like, oh my God, this just makes sense and I feel great. I'm inspired.
Time has come.
Yeah.
It doesn't happen. Like get used to always being like, well, I could do this another time, or nobody's gonna read it, or I suck, or whatever else. Like, I'm getting a divorce, or I'm going, whatever.
Just plant the seed, man.
And you just have to keep doing your work. And actually working during those times is when you make some of your best.
Without crisis, is like fertilizer.
I warn against the 3 Ps. The 3 Ps are you don't want to wait for perfection, you don't want to wait for permission, and you don't want to wait for payment. Those 3 things will kill creativity.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to me because I see that with my students. One of the things, they're all waiting for permission. Mm-hmm. That's what separates the amateurs from the pros, or whatever you want to call it. Perfection is also a huge problem. It's like, it's never going to be perfect. And I think that there's a lot of it comes from, and I know we're going to run out of time, but it's interesting where the future is going to go, because there's no conventions this year, and I think to myself, I miss convention. I don't miss conventions. I miss socializing at conventions. I miss oh, Hex 11 team is over here. And they're over by the escalator. So every time I need to take the escalator, I can stop by and say hello, but also just sort of watch what other people are doing, because as a group, as a team, Hex 11 is one of the most prolific teams I've ever seen. It's so inspiring to me. It makes me want to, if they were guys, I'd punch them. I know that's sexist to say. I've never hit a woman, girl, whatever, But,
you can hit me next time you see me at a convention.
But it's also that's the thing. I know people, and I hate to say it, but I know people who would look at whether it's the team or the creative team or the book itself, and dismiss it. And I'm like, no, learn from it, get inspired by it. I mean, there's so much great stuff out there. Why would you exclude yourself from any of it?
Yeah,
Absolutely.
exactly.
And as
Well, there's so
David-
much talk. Oh, sorry.
I was just going to say, Travis, actually, we are running very short on time. I do want to make sure we allow time for everyone to do a round robin at the end as to where our viewers can find you in terms of websites, your work, and social media. But before we do, I think David brought up a really beautiful point about the challenging times that we find ourselves in right now. And so in response to David, or in addition to David, I'd love for each of you briefly to just go around and share, is there something in this time that you have found helpful for you, or advice that you would offer in terms of moving the path forward for comic book creators? Lisa, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with David that the loss of conventions was initially like kind of a shock, because that's a lot of our income is through the shows. And so like we kind of had a bit of like I guess a financial panic. And like, of course, like we miss the socializing aspect. Like we miss seeing you walk by our booth, David, and being able to visit with people and see their faces in real life is of course, like, it sucks that we can't do that right now. But I will say that it's been interesting. Like we've been meaning to kind of like regroup and reach farther than conventions anyway. And so we kind of like have this moment, and have been taking this moment to kind of like focus on, reaching people that we wouldn't be able to reach anyway at a convention. And so I think that there's been a positive in kind of like focusing on that right now.
For sure.
Travis, what about you?
In these times for me, I've actually kind of gone the other way. Instead of like reaching out and branching out, I've taken a huge social media break. I've deactivated all my accounts and kind of, I'm kind of just refocusing on just what I do with my day and what I do with my work. And it's funny because I've actually been able to branch out and do other things that I've wanted to do for a long time. I actually started writing some stand-up comedy material in a notebook, and was thinking about trying that out when the world kind of returns to normal. So
No need
for
to
me, well, yeah, I'll do the
wait. Got
Zoom.
an audience right here. I'll come to your comedy show anytime.
Yeah.
So like for me, like I just completely went the other way, and maybe this is me showing my privilege a little bit in the sense that I have the ability to take a break where I don't need to be plugged into, what's going on all the time on social media. But for me, that's just what I need to do for my own mental health and for my creativity right now. So that's what I'm doing.
Yeah. And Alston, briefly, what about you?
I have mostly just been buckling down on deadlines and things like that. I'm not going to lie. Everyone else is like, I have free time. And I'm like, I've been able to play a video game for 4 hours. But no, just trying to take this time to really focus on, where I want to go, what I want to get out of, life and things, trying to figure out, like, right now times are really uncertain. We don't know if this is going to be like, okay, another month and then things kind of start going back to normal, or if it's like, this is how life's going to be and for another full calendar year, So just trying to figure out, regardless, where you want to be in 6 months and what projects do I want to work on next, because dang, am I antsy to just do like 6 projects at a time right now.
Yeah. Kelly, what about you?
I quit my day job. Full time on Hex 11. And again, I'm very privileged to be able to say that I can quit my job during a time like this. But I have a wonderful partner and obviously an amazing team. So yeah, that's exciting.
And Lynly?
Well, yeah, I had a lot. I mean, I've got a lot to do. The list is never ending. But it's been weird because I've had this incredible pull to stop it. because everything's slowed down, and it's like everything in my body is saying, slow down with it. Like, stop and like revel in this moment. But at the same time, I'm like, I'm just so busy. But I'm finding that it's like, maybe I'm not. You know, like I was jammed all the way up to the end of May, and then all of a sudden we got to June 1st and there was nothing on the calendar. And I was like, huh. I mean, there's always still a bunch of, I mean, I have a 4-year-old, live in a house that we've got a bar in the garage to maintain. Stuff falls apart. You know, like kiddie pool in the back, and got a yard I'm supposed to water and take. Like, there's just an endless amount of just life stuff, but that stuff would be there with or without it. I think what I'm most impressed by, though, was that urge that once everything, and I think we live by the airport, and so I think I relate a lot to that because there was just constant airplanes, and they're over there. They're not like flying overhead, and but they're just there, and it's this constant feeling of movement, action. And when that went away and it got quiet and the air got clear, and I was like, wow, we've had a moment right now that we should just be able to like just lay down in the grass and just stay here until we want to get up. That kind of stuff. So I don't know. That's where I'm kind of trying to head. And then at the same time, I'm like, I do have a lot to do, though. We are trying to retool our business. I'm on this board of this, Singnasium, and we had to completely retool that whole business to go online. Although that, too, is just exploded. We could have never done anything with the organization like we're doing now because of Zoom. Yeah. And people have to do it. Before, nobody would have opted in. But now, because it's the only way, now everyone's comfortable with it. And it's like, I like this new world where maybe we can all just live a little more comfortably. Be with the people you want to be with all day long instead of commuting 2 hours. Work from home. I mean, what's that all about?
Not put on pants. That's what I
Not put on pants. Yes.
Exactly.
I am in my Marvel approved boxers right now. I'm ready.
I like pants.
I like pants.
Pants are overrated.
Well, on that note, sadly, we have run out of time very quickly, unfortunately. I feel like I could chat with all of you for at least another hour. Yes, but I want to be sure for all of our viewers, if they would like to learn more about your work or follow you on social media, what is the best way to do so? Kelly, Sue, we'll start with you.
Oh, great. I can speak on behalf of the whole team. We are the Hex Comics on Instagram, Hex Comics on Facebook, hexcomics.com, Hex Comics on Patreon. You can follow me at Kelly Sue Says on Instagram for a lot of pictures of my child and also some astrology.
Excellent. And David, in addition to, of course, voting for you in this year's Eisner Award ballot, where can our viewers find you?
David F. Walker, all one word.com, and that takes you everywhere you need to go. You can find me, my Instagram, my Facebook, my Twitter, all that from davidfwalker.com.
Excellent. And Alston?
So you can find me anywhere on the internet, just at alstonnovak.com, on Tumblr, on Twitter, on Instagram. And then for Glitch Comics, you can go to wastelandcomics.com, and all of our social media is linked there because it's all different names. Wastelandcomics.com.
Excellent. And Travis?
All my stuff can be found at accidentalaliens.com. And then when I do come back onto social media, you'll be able to find me from there.
Excellent. Lisa, Lynly, before we go, anything that you want to add in terms of where people can find you?
Well, all those places Kelly Sue said. We also, we live in Los Angeles.
Come by visit.
What's your home address? And credit card and blood type.
Exactly.
I've been over there. It's great.
We are doing these cool Meet Me in the Hex shows every other Friday, and we've got one coming up tomorrow. Normally we would be interviewing someone doing something, but this time, because of the current situation, Kelly Sue is going to do an amazing astrological, what was the title, Kelly?
Astrology for Activism.
Astrology for Activism, and it's going to be super cool. So we hang out here in the Hex Bar, we have a cocktail, she's going to read some cards, and we're going to talk about bigger issues in a spiritual way. So, you can always find us at hexcomics.com, and we've got a YouTube channel, and, we're easily accessible. Not to be confused with easy. That's very different.
Of course, very different.
Easy.
Yes. Well, all of you, thank you so much for your time today and for sharing your thoughts, your experiences, your perspectives. We appreciate it immensely. Thank you to Comic-Con at Home for allowing us to host this panel. We hope that you found it informative. Again, I'm Barbara Dillon from Fanbase Press. Thank you so much, and have a great week.
Thanks, Barbara.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you, Barbara.
Be healthy, be well.